All right, the job numbers for July are in. 255,000 jobs added to our economy. President Obama brags about the rate of unemployment month after month, but he ignores something very important. He ignores the labor force participation rate. He ignores the demographic breakdown. He ignores the number of women and young people who still can't find jobs. Take a look.
Payroll processor ADP released its monthly national employment report Wednesday, August 3rd. U.S. companies added 179,000 jobs in July. That's more than the 165,000 some economists had forecast, and an increase from the 176,000 jobs added in June. Overall, mid-sized companies gained 68,000 jobs, while small businesses added 61,000, and large companies grew by 50,000. But tempering that news was the fact the gains were all in the service providing sector. Goods providing companies lost a total of 6,000 jobs in July, with construction losses leading the way.
Joining me now is spokeswoman for Generation Opportunity and senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, Patrice Lee. Patrice, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Patrice, 255,000 jobs added in July. We know the Obama administration is going to brag about this number. Is it a good one?
I mean, it's promising, it's encouraging to see that many jobs added, but that's only part of the story that we're seeing. And especially for young people and for women, you know, we've seen that they have not been able to keep up pace with the current economic recovery. 12.7% of young people ages 18 through 29 were left out of the job market. They were unemployed last month. And so we have to wonder, you know, for all the jobs that are being added, why are young people not able to find work right now?
Right, and Patrice, the things that always gets me is hearing liberals or the Obama administration brag about the number of jobs that they added, 255,000. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of that number, but there are 94 million, over 94 million people out of the workforce who've given up hope. The president that was supposed to be the president of hope now has the highest rate of hopelessness, people who don't even think they have a chance of finding a job in our modern history.
Yeah, you've got millions of people who've been out, who are unemployed and have been that way for quite a while. You know, and when Americans look right now at their bank accounts, they're looking at their family budgets and they're saying, you know what, I don't feel a lot of change. I mean, and that's because wages and earnings have been relatively flat over the past year. When you look at other ways that the American budget is being squeezed, or even for young people, straddled by student loan debt. You know, you're not getting a lot more money, it's difficult to find a job, and you're still paying off your debt from college, which, thanks to Uncle Sam in Washington, shoveled plenty of federal money towards you and drove up the cost of tuition. Now you're stuck with the bill. And so what we need is for Washington to get the gears unstuck, move out of the stalled position that our economy is in, and move us into a place where we're actually creating jobs and making it easier to hire young people and retain good talent.
Right, and you're absolutely correct. And I think that this is one of the things this election season that we need to focus more on, in the sense that last week at the Democratic National Convention, the Democrats told us time and time again what we should care about as women. They talked to us about reproductive rights, about abortion, and they barely touched on economic issues. And the way that they did is they put us in a separate category. They talked about equal pay for women, and they talked about $15 minimum wage. But Patrice, this is confusing, if you will, to me, because particularly minimum wage, and I want to touch on that first, the people that hurts the most are women and youth and the poor.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's a narrative being woven out there by the left, very effectively at that, you know, people on minimum wage are raising families, you know, generations on minimum wage, when that's not really the truth. Most people who are earning minimum wage are young people. Think about your summer job. My first summer job was at a barcoder in a private library. Sasha Obama this year, she's at Nantucket, you know, taking orders at a restaurant. But these are the types of jobs that are lost for young people because of higher minimum wages at the state level and potentially at the federal level if the Democratic Party gets its way.
Right, because the Democrats just conveniently forget that most people who make minimum wage are secondary earners in middle-class households, that they're not the primary breadwinners in houses that are under the poverty line. Patrice, let me ask you about this. Women entrepreneurs. So an economy like this makes it very difficult for new businesses to break into the job market or to make ends meet at all. And this particularly affects women because right now the United States, very proudly, #1 for women entrepreneurs. Women own 36% of the businesses in our country, but it's becoming more difficult to even start one.
Well, and let's start with Obamacare. I mean, Obamacare adds on cost to hiring a new person. And so if you're an independent entrepreneur, a woman just starting your business, or maybe let's say you have a few employees but you want to scale and grow, now you're not only looking at the salary for the next person you hire, you're also looking at the added cost of providing health care for that person. Or if you're trying to scale your company from, let's say, a small to mid-size and mid-size to large, you're still facing those challenges. And Obamacare is far from the only federal regulation that entrepreneurs are facing right now. A minimum wage, as we just discussed, is another thing. So for women entrepreneurs out there, they're thinking, how do we continue to grow our businesses, but do it in a way that keeps us from going into the red? And I don't think the Obama administration has thought through that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of progressives out there who think, oh, whatever, jobs will fall out of the sky from somewhere else. And they don't consider what it takes to actually create jobs in this
Right,
economy.
and frankly, I think it's intimidating too for women to even think about opening a business when there's so much red tape, there's such high taxes. It's almost a penalty just to be a small business owner rather than working for someone else. So a lot of women don't do that. Patrice, we're almost out of time. I do want to touch on the equal pay topic. This was talked about not only at the DNC, but Ivanka Trump talked about it at the RNC too. I was a bit surprised, but Democrats push that talking point that women earn only 79 cents on the dollar, and they paint the picture as if women are victimized by doing that, but that's not really an accurate picture.
It is not. It's like comparing apples to oranges. When you actually compare apples to apples, you see that if there is a wage gap, it shrinks to just a few cents on the dollar. And that's because women make lots of choices. They decide whether they want to stay out of the workforce for a little while to have families. They also decide what type of jobs they go into, how dangerous the job is, education, types of industries they get into. So as I mentioned, once you can take all those factors into consideration, then you see that there isn't such a huge wage gap that's out there. And I love to talk to young women all the time to demystify, what they've been told about women that they're being some sort of discrimination everywhere they look, whether on campus or in the job force. We've got to do more to be able to break that myth that's out there.
Right, I think you're 100% correct, and I hope that Republicans start doing that more now that the primary is over as we go into the general election. Patrice, we are out of time, but it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show. Our next tipping point with Media Research Center is the media coverage of Donald Trump's controversy. We'll be right back.